Hello, I'm Michael J., pastor at Raysville Friends Church, and we are continuing our study of Holy Week as taught through the Gospel of John. We are picking up on Thursday night. The Last Supper just ended, and Jesus is going out with his disciples to a place he often meets with them to pray. I will begin reading in chapter 18. After Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, because Jesus met there with his disciples often. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priest and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you seeking?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. Jesus said to them, "I am he." They stepped back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who are you looking for?" They said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you I am he. So if you are looking for me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word he had spoken. "I did not lose a single one of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword back in its sheath. Am I not to drink the cup the Father had given me?" So the soldiers, their officer, the Jewish police arrested Jesus, bound him, and took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who advised the Jews it is better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest, but Peter was standing outside of the gate. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the woman who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also stood with them and warmed himself. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about the disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I spoke to you openly. I always taught in the synagogues and in the temple where the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They will know what I said." When he said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I spoke wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I spoke rightly, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself, and they asked him, "Were you not one of his disciples?" He denied it, said, "I am not." Of the slaves, the high priest, a relative of the man who Peter cut the ear off, said, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again Peter denied it. At the moment, the cock crowed. Now, Thursday was a busy night. Not only was there the Last Supper, but there was the first trial that Jesus faced. It was one of those nights that lasted well into Friday, because what happens after Jesus is tried by the Sanhedrin? He's taken to Pilate, where they'll crucify him. This was a very hard night for Jesus. You notice at the garden, you have Peter chopping a man's ear off. Before, Peter had said, "I will die with you." Then you have Peter denying Jesus 3 times. Even so ridiculous as to when he's denying Jesus, the guy says, I saw you cut my cousin's ear off." It's just crazy, but it's what happens. Peter must be feeling awful. Then look where Jesus is. He's on trial. And what does he ask? He basically asks, why now? Why do you ask me what I said publicly? Everybody heard. I spoke it in the temple. But you also have to consider how he was arrested. He had a bunch of men coming to him at night. He was taken to the Sanhedrin at night. That's not right. He should have been arrested on Monday. He should have been arrested publicly in the temple. He should have been tried there. When he came in on Sunday, Palm Sunday, everybody was yelling, Hosanna, Hosanna. The Pharisees and chief priests were saying, look, this is going to be a problem. When he went and he gave his sermon in the temple, they could all hear, he's talking about us. They knew that he was trouble. He was disruptive. John's gospel has him cleansing the temple after he comes in during Holy Week. There are reasons to arrest him. More than an excuse. Well, why don't they arrest him? On one side, the reason that they did arrest him, they're afraid of Rome. As Caiaphas said, it's good that one man died to save the country. On the other side, they're afraid of the crowds who see Jesus as a prophet, see him as a worker of God's words, worker of miracles. What do? Well, they take him off at night, like they're doing something clandestine. They have a trial, which is a mockery of a trial, without proper witnesses, without proper evidence. And then when you jump forward to what I'm going to talk about on Sunday, they form a mob in front of Pilate's residence, and they yell for this man to be crucified, saying, "We've convicted him." It's not what you want in the morning if you're a provincial leader, to have a mob of people yelling at your residence at sunrise. Terrible way of getting woken up. But the point is, none of this was right. None of this was legal. This was all a mockery. It was done because Caiaphas and the Pharisees felt they were in a true bind. For Jesus, this must have been exhausting. From the moment he was saying goodbye to his friends, to agonizing over what he knew was to come, to being kept up all night, mockery of a trial, and then going through what would happen on Friday. But that's where we are going on Sunday. So I will leave you with this. We are in a moment of hopelessness. Everything is rushing to its conclusion, and there is nothing anybody can do to stop it. There's not anything to hope for. Everybody knows how this is going to end. It's hard to trust in these situations. It's hard to know how to survive. It's hard to know how to go forward. But we also know that the story doesn't end where we think it will. So we can have hope.